introduce me, so let me introduce him so he can introduce me.
Fair enough. Well, hello, everybody. I am David Johnson. I serve on the board of directors for the Anderson Forum for Progressive Theology. And on behalf of the board, I want to welcome everybody, especially you folks who don't normally join us. And I hope you will come back to these events. Before I introduce Brian, who apparently everybody already knows, I need to take care of just a little bit of business. As you may know, our board serves as volunteers, and we keep our overhead for this organization as low as possible. We do not charge participants to attend, and yet we do have expenses. And so these wonderful events aren't free. So we rely entirely on contributions. So if you feel so inclined, we want to invite you to make a donation to the cause. And you can do that through our website, which is afptonline.org.
The volume on my computer.
The org is important. It's not .com, afptonline.org. Or if you are old school like me, you can mail a check to AFPT at P.O. Box 1624 in Anderson, South Carolina, 29622. That address is available on the website, and I will also post it in the chats that are down below. You will be able to see it there and write it down at your leisure. And so it is now my pleasure to introduce the speaker today, Rabbi Brian Zachary Mayer. Rabbi Brian, as he prefers to be called, grew up on the small island of Manhattan. That's a foreign country, I think. I'm not sure. He was, as a child, rational and logical president of the math team. So one of those. And then it was while he was at Tufts University that he got interested in religion. And he became a rabbi and worked for 7 years as what he calls a professional Jew. He left. I think that's hysterical to call yourself a professional Jew. He left organized religion and became a high school math teacher, but he kept up his blog, Religion Outside the Box, or ROBT for short, which became his full-time ministry. So as you can all already see, today's event will be a little bit different than our previous Zoom events. Rabbi Brian will serve as our Zoom host, and so we will be interactive. And that's right. That means we can see you unless you choose otherwise. And I will let him explain how that will work, how you can ask questions later. And also you can take advantage of the chat box down at the bottom in the middle of things if you want to post a comment or a brief question, something like that. And now I will turn it over to Rabbi Brian. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Thank you. I want to thank, I have friends on the inside who are I'm not hosting the video and running all this. So thank you to Alex and my friend Joe, who often moderates the chat, because I can't watch the chat while I'm interacting with you guys. So welcome.
I just say again, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself, because we hear other people talking to people in their houses.
Thank you for the note. I do like you to have your microphones open. Of course, that does have a little bit of drawback because sometimes things can be heard. And also, I want to say hi to anyone watching this after the fact. Can you guys all do me a favor before we get any further in? Can you guys all wave and say hi? Because just wave. Let me see that you're all alive. Hi, welcome. Great. So let me begin with a quote. I'm going to quote G.K. Chesterton, who said...
But I've got it sitting so that
hold on.
You can see too.
So it often takes us a half a second, so I stay quiet when the other microphone's on, and then Alex can figure out who that was. So Chesterton had this great quote. G.K. Chesterton said, "Angels can fly because they take themselves lightly." Angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. Folks, we tend to get into this theology business and we become the most boring, this is theology. This is talking about God. This could actually be fun. And I'm so glad that you signed up for a seminar called Fun with Theology. So you've already self-selected out that you're not the people who don't want to hear about fun and theology. Subtitled, Talking to Adults About Finding the God of Their Understanding. Now, I have first, I am not a sage on the stage kind of presenter. I like to interact. I don't, and this is one of the things, and I will continually make reference to things of when you are talking to adults about God, you should do this. But I have this problem because I don't know you should do this. I know it's what I do. And I know why I choose to do a lot of the things that I do. But I don't know that you should do this. So I was thinking about the language, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll present the whole thing and I'll say, well, this is what I do and this is what I do. But that felt a little stiff. So just a question before we move on. Are you all right with me saying you should do this, even though we know that you needn't to do exactly what it is that I'm saying? Is that an okay? Does anyone have a better suggestion for how we should do it?
Look at all the people.
Okay, we're okay. Now, what I've just done already is part of how do you interact to adults about God. Is you not, I already said I'm not a sage on the stage. I need to engage you guys. And when there's something that could be icky or sticky about like me saying you should, to acknowledge it between us in our relationship, in me talking to you like an adult and saying, I don't have the power to tell you what to do. And this is about theology, is that we have to be careful. I made a list of words we shouldn't use. I can't find it. Oh, that we need to
Rabbi, you could use the word could instead
Okay,
of should.
could. Let me try that. Thank you, Emily. So what you could do is keep it so that the adults feel like they are involved in the lesson, like I just did with Emily. And to talk to adults about God, one should always be transparent. You could be transparent. I mean, I guess you could not be transparent too. I'm not sure I'm liking the word could very much. You should be transparent. To me, that means I don't have a green screen of a blurred background behind me. Everything that I do when I'm talking to adults about the very sensitive topic of God, for which a lot of people have a lot of baggage that they're going to bring with them, I'm going to be as open as I can. I'm going to be as transparent as I can. Also, keeping the room safe, making sure that everyone in the group feels like they could say something if they wanted. And another really important thing to do with adults, I've learned from Disneyland. Adults hate to be treated like children. And adults hate not to be treated like children.
No.
Let's have some fun. Let's start it right now. There are 37 similarities between a classic notion of God and Santa Claus. There are 37. I'm not kidding. There are similarities between classic ideas we have of what God is and Santa Claus. And I'd love you guys to start helping me fill out those 37 similarities. They are. Now, I'm not saying we have to believe in any of these things that we're about to say. These are just similarities between two different concepts. This is not saying.
He is watching you all the time.
Yeah, so they're omniscient.
A beard.
They both have beards, which also means that they're usually portrayed as cis male.
He gives you stuff.
Oh, yeah, you get stuff. But you don't
If you're
just get
good.
stuff, folks.
Yeah, you're
Spell
good.
that out a little bit deeper. You only get stuff if.
You're good.
You're good.
Yeah, so
Follow
it's
the rules.
yeah, it's stuff based on the rules. Keep going. What else do you know about Santa Claus and God?
Makes a list.
Oh,
Yeah,
we
the
got
beard.
lists. We got lists. Fantastic. What else you got?
He's everywhere.
Okay, you use the singular masculine present.
I did.
You did
So
you
that's
did a
another
he.
one.
That's another one. We
Yep.
got right cis male, and then you said everywhere, which is fancy word for omnipresent. That's
Omniscient.
Omnipresent.
omnipresent is everywhere. Hey,
Gives
here's
gifts.
another tip about
Omniscient.
dealing with adults. Try
Gift.
to introduce the vocabulary during the class.
Gifts.
Gifts. We got gifts. We got stuff. We got rules. We got gifts. But there's more than just gifts.
He does
get-
impossible things.
Say that last one
Magic.
again.
You get ashes or become ashes.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
right. What is coal? Coal means hell, right? You get gifts, and your gifts are either awesome or death.
Yeah.
Thanks, Santa.
Yeah.
How about
He does
magic?
impossible things.
Yeah, but I heard two people say the same thing. Magic, doing impossible things.
Can't see them.
Oh, yeah. There's some weird rule that says you can't see them, but only people with blank can witness them.
Belief.
Only come once a year.
Yeah, only people. Oh, yeah, well, hold on to the once a year for a second. They both require belief, and there's something about the children. Hold this one on for size. Similarity between Santa Claus and Santa Claus and God is that they're both pediatric. They're both things only for children. Again, I'm not saying we like it. There was one I asked you to hold on to. What was that one? I missed it.
Trust.
Belief.
Only come once a year.
Oh,
only
yeah.
come once
They're
a year.
they're once a year kind of, one time a year kind of folks.
How about lives far away?
Oh, wait. Keep going on that one. Not only do they live far away, but where do they live?
In the sky.
They both live somewhere above us.
Above
Yeah.
it.
Tell me about their helpers, would you?
Those are pretty scary.
Special helpers.
Give me more specifics about them.
Short.
They're
Wings.
they're small size.
They're imaginary.
Yeah, they're small, imaginary. They require beliefs.
And they do the work. They do all the work.
They do the work. They do all the work, and then we have neither of them die.
No.
They both live forever. What else do you get between the two of them? I got one. This one's specific to my people. We both get the image that neither of these are for us. You laugh all you want. That's why we have more therapists than you do. Okay. Let me take it. Anyone else have one that they want to share out?
They have animals.
Oh yeah, they got special relationships with animals. That's weird.
They also have scary counterparts.
Oh, right. So they are all. I'm going to extrapolate a little bit on for that. Is they are both about love. They are pure love, but there's something on the other side.
Yeah.
Jack Frost or the Grinch.
Krampus.
Krampus
if you're German.
Krampus is
Or
like for real
Zwarte Piet.
scary. Yeah.
Or Zwarte Piet if you're Dutch.
We got scary ones on the other end. Anything else come to mind? Because I think we just got to
The word
37 right
forgiving
then.
is in the chat. Forgiving? I don't.
Oh
Does
yeah.
Santa forgive, I
No,
guess?
that's totally true. Both of their personalities, they would rather love you than hate you. Oh, that ran off. They would both rather love you than hate you. Okay, folks. Question.
Believe in them.
Say that one again.
You have to believe in them.
Yes. There's some weird thing about belief that you need to believe in them or they're not true. They're kind of like, who was that? Tinkerbell, where you had to clap in order to believe in Tinkerbell or Tinkerbell wouldn't exist. Alex, I lost control of the screen for a second here. There we go. I apologize.
It's given us some problems here.
No worries. Thank you.
Way lag.
So, question, people. We actually hit 38. Amazing. Like, we're the best group ever to have ever done this. So, I counted. It's right. A+. Now, let me ask a harder question. And this is general andragogy. Pedagogy is how to teach children. Andragogy is how to teach adults. General andragogy is you start always, like we just did, with an exercise that everyone can answer the question. You get people to start talking first, because if they're going to start talking about God and deep things, let's warm up their motors. Let's get them starting to talk beforehand. So, now that we did round one, what are similarities between God and Santa Claus? Let me ask you this. What do you think could be potential problems of our culture presenting God with training wheels as a red, beloved guy in the North Pole? Let me ask that again, because there's some weird things that are going to come out of this culture where we train children, right? How do kids learn about God? Well, we train them. How else would they know about God? They'd find out by themselves. Let's not go too crazy. I mean, what could happen then? We train kids to believe about God. What do you think could happen if we train kids based on a Santa Claus notion of God? What are they going to do? What's going to happen?
Figure out it's a lie.
They're right.
Guilt.
I love Bruce just hit it pretty hard. They're going to figure out it's a lie. Like, what the hell happens if your God is Santa Claus and then you become 17? I was
just when I figured it out.
It could really have a heart. What do you do then? I got some answers, but give me some other disadvantages of our culture.
The whole reward and punishment as motivation for behavior.
Correct. We're locking people into this idea of God judging. Good, fantastic. Other problems that might occur. So you see what we're doing right now. There's learning and then there's unlearning. Learning is we know how to do it, and unlearning is sometimes really, really difficult. To unthink the things that you used to think, that's really hard to do. It's uncomfortable and we don't want to do it. Let me teach you for a moment a tool that can help you. This is based on the work of James Fowler. I adapted it. James Fowler said this. He said that in our childhoods, we believe in magic. We have fairies. My daughter, there was a monster in her closet. That wasn't she was imagining a monster in the closet. There's a monster in her closet. Like, little kids have real magic in life. This leads into, again, dependence. Different people use different words for these different stages. Some people add a few beforehand. We're not getting into that. Dependence is where you say, well, that's what's written. That's what it says in the Bible. That's what my grandfather said. That's what the preacher said. That's how it is. I believe it. That's true. Leaving any stage only happens when the theology of that stage no longer fits our current reality. And that sucks. It's never, everyone likes to have transformed. Nobody likes transforming. Moving from dependence to what's usually the next one, which is independence. Independence is the four horsemen of atheism. Independence is saying it's all science. Forget it. There's nothing in it. It's all empty. To move from here to here, that's a really big leap for a lot of people. There is no Santa Claus. That's scary. You don't want to hit here if you were happy here. And we know a lot of people who poke their eyes out and pretend there's no light and they'll just pretend and pretend. Well, here's a problem that a lot of adults don't get past independence because nobody showed them. Maybe they didn't read it. Maybe they didn't come on it on their own. Paradoxicality. That's a really long word. Paradoxicality is a wonderful faith stage, which I think most adults are in. Paradoxicality, excuse me. Paradoxicality is the ability to hold two thoughts that are contrary to each other at the same time. Paradoxicality, I give two examples of. One, Passover. I always say, because it's written in the prayer book, it's written in our Siddur, for the Seder, it's written, I was a slave in the land of Egypt. Maybe there was a point in my life where I believed it. I sure as hell know I wasn't a slave in the land of Egypt. Paradoxicality gives me the ability to have both at the same time. Paradoxicality is to say, I was a slave in the land of Egypt. I am a slave still to constrictions. And I still, and it never happened. A Christian image that is of the communion. The communion, the body of Jesus. Cracker is nothing else. And I'm sure a lot of you have gotten to a sense where you can see it can be both. Why not? There's nothing that says it can't be. Paradoxicality is a beautiful place for adults to be. Often it gives, this is Fowler ends with unity. And I don't think these are all individual locations as much as places. When my dad was dying, like, let's say you have 100 points to put through all of them. When my dad was dying, I found myself in a dependence stage of life. Like, I wanted things to be really clear. Paradoxicality leads to moving more and more of your chips out of dependence and independence. Unity is where you feel connected to everything. And unity, this is the big contribution I have to this work of James Fowler, is I add this arrow in. That unity starts to feel again like magic. And I know you guys all know what I'm talking about on some level, where you go, oh snap, this is cool. And that awe and wonder starts to feel a lot again like magic. Okay. If we have adults who are only learning Santa Claus and nobody's taught them anything else, we're in trouble. Let me teach you. I'm going to give you another tool, and then we're going to continue on our Santa Claus theme. Hold on. How are you guys doing? All right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
We're good.
Here's a tool I always give. It goes like this. Every time I do spiritual direction, I say, look, if there are two people on an island, does the one person have the right to tell the second person what to believe? And y'all can tell me the answer to that. What does the one person have the right to tell the second person what to believe? You can shake your head or up and down. What do you want? No.
No.
All right, so now I'm going to change it. There are four people on the island now. 3 believe one thing, 1 believes something else. Do the 3 have the right to convince the 4th? How about 5? Okay, magic number. How about 5? It's the number of fingers you have on your hand. And y'all
they probably will think they have the right, but
they might think they have the right. You're absolutely right, Alex. You're absolutely right. They might believe they have the right, but they don't. They don't have the right.
Is this a convincing or a conversation?
Correct.
Level so.
It's a great. We're trying. I often, the only reason I give this to you is I give it to you as a tool to help adults is sometimes when they start, because it happens and people are learning to break up with the church or they're trying to work through some old trauma. It helps for me to just be able to hold my hand up like that and say, you're all right. It doesn't matter how many of them tell you that you're wrong. You know what's right. There's a great quote from Walt Whitman, which I implore that I use and I have people listen to, is dismiss everything that insults your soul. So here's the fun thing about teaching adults about theology. This is a really risky topic. That's why it said on the invitation how to talk to adults about finding the God of your understanding. Because I know if I write the description and just say, join Rabbi Brian for a discussion about what your theology is, I'm not sure y'all would be here. It's really a scary topic for adults to come into conversation with. The safety is so, so important. Okay, I want to go back to where I was with Santa Claus. Baylor University 2006 does this wonderful study, and it helps. Hold on. This is B, A, C, D. Baylor University does a study of all of North America. There's some problems with the study, as there are with every study. And they say that there are 4 different gods floating around North America. Isn't that cool? Oh, look it up. The statistics get really interesting on like education level of each group and where they live in the country. And it's really neat. But there are 4 different groups that they found. And they, fortunately for learning, make an acrostic ABCD. The first one is an authoritarian notion of God. And that's our classic notion of Zeus. Oops. Authoritarian is Zeus. B is Santa Claus. B stands for benevolent. When people say that they believe in God, they're trying to pick between, do I believe in this thunderbolt throwing God that's prevalent in the southeast of America, or do I believe in this Santa Claus God? Or do I believe in this critical God who's most like a high school vice principal? Let me give an example on how each one of these works. You have a bacon double cheeseburger. Authoritarian Zeus God says, you're not supposed to have a bacon double cheeseburger. B, benevolent God. You have a bacon double cheeseburger. Santa Claus God says, oh, I love those too. Gosh, we sure shouldn't eat those. Have a cookie. C, critical God. You had a bacon double cheeseburger? We are going to talk about that later. And I'm going to bring up everyone who's ever not liked you, and they're going to talk about that too. And then D is this distant notion of the Great Clockmaker God. Is that God set the world in motion but doesn't do much now. I always teach this and then I add in E. E is anything else. And you all know why I spelled it with an E, because the A was taken. Another tool that I use in talking to adults about God. I tell them a story, and I got this story from Alan Watts. And he said, imagine that there are 2 people who are like Heloise and Abathar, and they are the most beautiful with words, and they love each other, and they send each other such beautiful poems to express their love. And then there's another couple named Brian and Jane, and they're not poets, and they wrote dorky love notes to each other, and they don't always rhyme, and sometimes Brian's spelling is atrocious. Does that mean that he doesn't love Jane as much? And the answer is, as long as he buys her a card, she's pretty happy. Okay, I kind of lost the analogy there and just went straight into my own life. I apologize. But the point is to remind people that they don't have to have all their theological ducks lined up in a row. I don't. And I freely admit to people that the day that I realized I didn't need to have all my ducks in a row, I had this thought that was like, hey, there are people who are smarter than I am. It's possible, probable. There are people who are probably smarter than I am who haven't figured out the whole God thing. So why am I hurting myself trying to learn all of this? So I give myself permission. That's the little story I tell people, and that's about these poets. And if the love doesn't matter about how well it's said, go ahead. All right, we did that one. We did this one. 1 to 5 people on an island. Remember that? Good. I got another thing I want to tell you. Oh. 2 very, very important things. My children, when they were little, they were walking around the park here, and they start telling me about God, which I thought was interesting because they were really little at the time, and I had not been talking to them about God, but they had a clear notion of who God was. I mean, kind of crazy, but whatever. I've seen worse. They had all these ideas of God, and they go to public school, and where'd they get these ideas from God, about God? And there are 2 words I want to teach you. No, I'm not going to teach you. That means like you didn't know these words. You already knew these words. There are 2 words I want to show you the difference of. There's taught and there's caught. Taught are the things, 4 squared is 16. Square root of 16 can also be -4. Those are things that are taught. You had to learn those in school. Then there are things that are caught. And theology is unfortunately going to be one of them. And the things that are caught are like knowing to, like nowadays, I don't think any of us ever took a class on how to space yourselves properly in the post office during COVID. But we all kind of figured it out, and you know what's socially acceptable to do. That's something that was caught. We all, like, there's no reason we shouldn't have our Zooms. Nobody said what space we're supposed to be at for Zoom. We just have all defaulted to one thing. It was all just caught that way. The classic example of the elevator, right? Nobody stands in the elevator facing the back of the elevator. We all turn. That's all stuff that's caught. The stuff that's taught, say bless you when someone sneezes, is easier to not do and to not learn and to unlearn. 4 times 4, like someone taught you that, you can unlearn that. Well, maybe not the 4 times 4 one, but the, Pluto being a planet. We were taught that, we can unlearn it, big deal. The caught stuff, that's a lot harder to undo. That stuff's harder to undo, sociologists think, because we don't remember learning it. That's most of the theologies that we got. Nobody taught it to us. We just picked it up. We just caught it. And so it makes it a lot harder to unlearn. Okay. I'll give you one other. Hold on. Any questions so far before I go on? I'm going to have you guys do an exercise.
I just have a quick one. So when you just said taught and caught is a lot harder to undo because we don't remember learning it, does that mean we may not even be aware of what is in our caught basket?
Correct. We're not aware of what's in our caught basket. That takes some serious work to notice it, because it's like, that baseline computer code. You didn't ever see it.
Yeah.
Our theology's like that.
Can I say something?
Please.
I don't agree with the fact that you just absorb your theological beliefs. I think they're very taught.
Some of them are also taught. Yes,
your family, your parents. I mean, my experience with mine and anybody I know, it's been taught. That's why they've been brought up to believe that this is true, and it's so hard to undo it.
So
I don't know.
Can I change what I'm going to say, what I said based on what you just said, Joyce?
Mm-hmm.
Let me try this. The things that are both caught and taught are probably going to be double knotted in there.
Okay.
So you were taught, I was taught some theology, some of it, and some of it I thought, well, that's just stupid. But some of it I was taught I must have believed also. So maybe I'm going to add something in, Joyce, and help me if this works, is that they're the things that we are just taught without also picking it up in the water. They're the things that nobody ever told us that we just caught, And then there are some things that we're going to have a taught and caught sandwich on. And if your theology is double knotted down under, you were not only always told these things, but that was the only thing that was happening, and you didn't have a chance to absorb anything else, that stuff's going to be really locked in.
Yeah.
Does that sound all right, Joyce?
Yeah, maybe. I have to think about it.
I'm going to have to put some more time into my thoughts as well, Joyce. So I thank you for correcting me, because I came at it from my own angle.
Well, it's not a correction per se. It was just my experience. Just doesn't fit what you were saying.
Well, I appreciate you widening the experience. Thank you.
I think
it
Bob. Would be Suzanne. I'm Suzanne, even though it says Bob.
I apologize. I'm being very well trained.
I would think it would be a lot easier to discard what you were taught, but not what you caught.
Correct. That's what I was trying to get at. And then we're adding in what Joyce says, that if it was both, all the worse. Yes. Go ahead, Margaret. Thank you, Sue.
I just say that I remember as a little kid the taught and the caught, but I was born a skeptic, and my parents encouraged the questioning, so that I guess that's both caught and taught. So when it comes to theology, I can step back very easily.
Good. Wonderful. Glad to hear. And Mary, what do you have to say, my friend?
I'm just thinking, I have a son that's on the autistic spectrum. And he has broadened my perspective on a lot of things.
Absolutely.
But he doesn't catch things.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. This is obviously not a one size fits all kind of talk.
Right.
Please adjust as you see needed. I'm going to give you guys an exercise we're going to try. Thank you guys for that feedback. I appreciate it. Do you have a piece of paper you're able to get to? If you have a piece of paper, you could even use a computer program, but I want to ask everyone to try an exercise with me. Now, you don't have to do this exercise, and this is also very important in pedagogy. We're talking about adults. You do not have the ability to require an adult to do anything. And to know that I'm going to ask you to do this exercise, but you definitely do not have to show your results of what you come up with. You don't ever have to do that. And if you don't want to do the exercise at all, you don't have to. I'm going to ask you, though, if you're willing to try, it goes like this. I'm going to ask you on a piece of paper. Oh, let me get that one. You're going to do it, and it's going to make it look just like an email. You're going to have to, from, and then subject. And if you would just do that on your piece of paper, to, from, and subject. And then I'll show you what we're going to do. Oh, I really like the feedback you guys just gave me. Thank you for that about taught and caught. That's really helpful. All right, here we go. You have an email. I'm going to help you with one part of it right now, which is the from is going to say God@God.com. I know it's weird that God's at a .com and not a .org. I thought the same thing. I'm like, what does that mean? And then I thought maybe I'm thinking too much about it.
Do you own that domain? If I email it, will it come back?
I have no comment. No, that's not mine. Not mine. I'm excited I have rotb.org. It was like I got 4 letters. I feel like a winner. To, now the to, I don't know the answer to the to in your case. So, like I have more than one email. I'm sure a lot of you have more than one email. So take a moment to figure out which of your emails is God emailing you on. And I think God's using this one. And now we're going to go to the next part. It's going to say subject. I don't know how to advise you on that. It could say like forward, top 10 tips on busting belly fat, or I doubt that's what God's going to be emailing you. What's the subject of your email going to be? And you might not know that yet, because I know back from writing papers and trying to write a book, you don't always know the title until the whole thing's done. So if you need to skip on the subject, if you know what the subject is, put that in. And now here we're going to go with the actual email. The email has 3 parts to it. Every email, it's going to have the opening. That's the, hey, Jimmy, or to whom it may concern, or I've been watching you, or I don't know, whatever it is that is in the front, the very first. In Hebrew, it's called the peticha, the opening. And then you're going to have the juicy middle part. And then you're going to have what in Hebrew is called the chatima, the closing of, it's the sign off. Better get your stuff together. Sincerely, God. You know, or I don't know what. But I'm going to ask you to I'm going to put a timer up. We're going to do a 5-minute timer. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write that email and see what's in it, and allow yourself to be a little bit surprised by what happens in your email. So I put a 5-minute clock up, and I'm going to be quiet in a moment, and I'm going to ask you to fill in that email, knowing full well that you'll never have to share what's written in that email with anyone. So you go ahead and take some time, and now I'll actually do that thing and be quiet.
Bless you.
Bless you. All right, folks. Oops. There we are. Hi. Take a breath of air, would you? How'd that go? Alex, hold on. I lost them. There's everybody. Hi, everybody. I can't get enough zoom in on faces to read your faces right now. Y'all look pretty still. Give me some kind of like on the screen from hand at the bottom of the screen to I have just been traumatized to hand at the top of the screen is I'm all right. Like where are you? Because there's some weird things that can come out of that exercise. Okay, most people have hands still, so that's important. That's good. Did show me your hands?
The person who keeps sneezing mute themselves unless it's Rabbi Brian.
Thank you, Marilyn. How many of you were somewhat surprised by something that was in your letter? Anyone have anything in their letter that they regret to have received?
Oh.
Well, let me ask, and again, just I'm going to point out, I feel like a magician showing magic tricks as I'm doing it. I'm going to ask questions that are increasingly more specific, right? I started with just hands. I moved on to general, and I'm going to give people larger and larger spaces to share. Here's the next question. If you were to look at what was written as an English assignment in grade school, and the teacher asked you to say, what was the tone that was written? See, so I'm not asking you to reveal the whole thing. I'm just asking you to reveal your tone. Could you tell us what tone was in the letter that you received? What was the tone? I'm actually asking, not just me pretending to ask.
Very positive.
Okay, we got one that was positive.
Loving.
Kind, loving.
Friendly.
Supporting.
Lauding. Did anyone get anything on the negative side of the world here?
Confirming.
Confirming? Yeah, go ahead. Honest.
No, admonish.
Admonished. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Judgment.
The judgment. Any of them feel unfair? What was written to you felt unfair?
No.
No? Okay.
Nope.
Okay. And then often I will work with a group, and look, this is a random group that has just met each other on the internet. Trust in this case is a real bizarre thing, but it really only takes one person to establish the trust. So I will ask, and we only have so much time, is there anyone who feels compelled, they feel the Spirit move them, that they want to share what they got in their letter? Yeah, Elaine, go ahead. And then just everybody be good responders, right? Y'all know how to play.
Mine said that the subject turned out to be in case you forget. And the opening is, hi, sweetie. I love you beyond your wildest imagination. You know that, right? Trust it. I love when you call upon me and when you care about the world and my people. I love when you use your creative gifts. You have a unique and special light, and it's wonderful when you let it shine. Keep progressing and deepening on your journey, and never forget that I always love you. I'm always with you, always, God.
Thank you, Elaine. Thank you for being brave and sharing that. Thank you so much for doing that. Is there someone else who feels so compelled to share? Obviously, we won't have time for everybody's to do.
I will.
Go ahead, please. Thank you for being brave.
I'm the one who said admonish.
Yes.
Subject, dealing with hurtful people. Dear loved one, your job during this life is to learn to get along with hurtful people. You haven't done too well so far. Your dad, Nona, Charlie, Jay. You need to learn to forgive and love them anyway. If you don't, you'll have to come back with the same job again. I would like to see you make progress on this. Love always, God.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. That's a very tender thing to have shared. Usually, is there someone else who's got a burning something they want to share?
There's a fascinating statement in the chat. What if your email went to spam?
I think often mine do. Yeah. So here's a follow-up exercise to do and to try, and if you are doing it with the group, to have them do next, is to write the response and see what comes out of that.
I'll read mine.
Okay, go ahead.
From God at God.com, subject, how far you've come. Hey, Emily, I really like what you're up to right now. I think you're on to something. It's fun for me to see how big you've gotten. You're really amazing and somewhat cute, too. Go, girl, your friend God. P.S. I like your dog, too.
That's very sweet, Emily. Thank you for sharing that.
Love that.
Thank you. Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to share one other technique that I have used in. And there's this story. It's a classic rabbinic story about Rabbi Susie. Well, first, I will tell you, if I'm doing a multi-week class about God, I will adapt this to, on different weeks, I'll have different people bring in a story that has the character of God in it, or a joke that has the character of God in it, just to share it, and so we can look at it. Is that the God notion that we want to hold, or is that one that we want to dismiss because it insults our soul? So there's this story about Rabbi Susie, and the story of Rabbi Susie is that Rabbi Susie is dying and is very anxious. And Rabbi Susie's disciples say, "Why are you so anxious? You were as wise as Solomon." And Susie says, "I'm not worried God's going to ask me, were you as wise as Solomon?" And they say, "Well, why are you anxious? You are as noble as Moses, as righteous as with the law." And Susie says, "I'm not worried God's going to ask you, why were you not more like Moses with the law?" And they say, "Well, what are you worried about?" And Susie says, "I'm worried that they're going to say, Susie, why were you not more like Susie?" The great story. The punchline to the story has yet to be told, though. The punchline to the story is, I want you to take a moment to feel how that story landed in you. Like, oh, of course, why would God be upset that I wasn't more like Moses? How did that moral hit you? And to remember that that's a story about God that somebody made up. The story of Susie is just a story about God that somebody tells that helps us to get a sense of who God is. And it is no more valid or less valid than any story you might have within you as to who God is. You knew when you heard the story that it landed and it was cogent with what your images of God are. You already know what the parameters for who God is, what God is. And so I leave that with you, with all of you, as a conclusion of how to talk to adults about God, is to let adults listen to themselves. Because most of what needs to be taught is the stuff you already know. And I'll end with the quotes from Deuteronomy. And there's this great passage at the end of Deuteronomy where Moses goes up to the top of the mountain and comes down with the laws. And ironically, in beautiful irony, Moses says to the people, "These are the words of God. God said not to send anyone up to the heavens to get the words of God." It's ironic. And Moses says, and God said, you should not send someone across the sea to get the commandments of God, for the commandments of God are not far from you. The commandments of God are in your mouth so that you can say them. The commandments of God are in your hands so that you can do them. The commandments of God are in your heart that you can love them. Everything
Can you
we need
say
to
that
know.
again? Can you say that heart's hand, that thing? Can you just say that again?
That the true commandments of God are in our mouth so that we can speak them. They're in our hands so that we can do them. And they're in our hearts so that we can live them. Is that exactly what it says in Deuteronomy? No.
Where?
In Deuteronomy, it's not there. The end of Deuteronomy has that part about the climbing the mountain, and it has the part about across the sea. And it says about the hands. Does it say it as poetically as I did? Sure. But not really. I'm fine with quoting the Bible incorrectly. I'm fine with that. Okay, we are coming to a time boundary. I know that some people have other things to do, and we did promise that there would be a time for questions. I don't know that we promised there were going to be also a time for answers. So that makes me feel a lot better about the questions that are about to be coming.
This is an easy question. Never mind. I think you answered it. Where in Deuteronomy is what you just referred to?
It's at the end. It's in the very end. It's the holiness code.
At the end. All right. Thank you.
Sure, somebody, while we're chatting, can take a quick look on Google. All right, folks. That was a lot we just talked about. How about this? Before we go with questions, I would love to ask this. Could you tell me one sentence of something that you learned from today? What is one sentence? Hey, you went to that Fun with Theology class that Rabbi Brian was doing. What's one sentence that you're going to take out with you? What's a piece of learning that you got?
I'm going to do it again.
Okay. Well, but what'd you get? Give me a sentence. What'd you take?
Joy.
Enjoy.
Joy.
I love that. Keep going. Give me other words.
Think about what you were taught and what you caught.
Amen. Let's think about the difference between those two. Thank you. Harry, you have something to say? I see you have a hand up.
Yes, the fact that when you realize the unity, then that goes back and reverts to magic again. That's a mystery of it that you kind of accept because you know experientially.
Yes, absolutely. Amen. Thank you, Harry. Something else somebody picked up that they learned they're taking with them? I like this better than the questions. Go ahead, Anne.
Brian, I've always been told that the larger percentage of adults' concept of God is on the 6th grade level, and they kind of quit learning and exploring after that. So I was glad to have that those groups that you divided into. I think that helps to understand what approach to use.
Yeah. I'm so glad. I'm so glad you said so.
Finding out what level they're on before you light into something.
Yeah. And also, Anne, to remember that we're talking about adults, and if they had a 6th grade understanding of accounting, and their accountant said something that could shame them, they got a 6th grade understanding of religion. And they know that they don't know. And so how do you keep it really safe?
Exactly.
Amen. All right, so now we can mold from now we hit the exact time. So from statements of things that were learned to questions, but I'll take more statements. Whatever you guys got, you tell me.
What I learned is always start the discussion with a question anyone can answer and then go to more specifics.
And get a little bit harder and a little bit harder. Yeah, it's a great trick. Thanks, Sharon. All right, gang. Let's. I'll just stare at all of you then. Go ahead, David.
One thing I got. Hello,
David.
I think one of the things I got was I can give up my belief in Santa Claus, but I can work on my belief on God.
Amen.
Yep.
Amen.
Amen.
I like the way you said that. Yeah, David.
I think it's sad if we don't believe in Santa Claus, though.
Well,
really, I mean, all we need to do is teach kids that once they get it, they are now Santa Claus. And it's always good to give without expecting receiving. It's always good to give anonymously, and we can't forget that ideal of Santa Claus.
I love that. I love that. I love that, Janet. Thank you for bringing us to Santa Claus again. David, you have something,
story.
and you're supposed to be hosting, so I feel like I need to call on you.
Well, the hosting is done. I've done my introductions. One of the things I read in your blog, what if God doesn't speak our language? And I'm wondering if you could address that idea in terms of how you'd talk to adults about any kind of communication. I think for a lot of adults, the notion of prayer is a Santa Claus wish list.
Yeah.
And if you try to go beyond that, they don't really know what to do with it.
Yeah, I like to. And terms get really complicated, and I think about the word prayer, and the word prayer has so much baggage on it, and people hit it the wrong way. And I try to unteach that asking is the only prayer, but that the most beautiful prayer is just being present. It's just being wherever we are.
That's why what the blog said about assume that God doesn't speak your language. Then what's being communicated is your attitude, your behavior, your actions, and not your words.
Yeah.
And that struck me as pretty profound.
Good. I'm glad I wrote that. Thank you, David. Yes,
Where
Annette?
do we find your blog?
Alex, could put a link in, would you? Thanks, Alex. And Annette had a question.
I was just going to say that the language of love is really God's love.
Yeah.
You don't talk.
Yeah, it's that great one that's attributed. It's not a real quote. It says, I think it was attributed to St. Francis. It says, "Preach the gospel often, but use words only when necessary."
I liked it when you were very comfortable with saying, I don't know everything about God, because we can't know everything about God. But to give ourselves permission to say, I don't know.
Yeah. And
to admit to whatever it is that we are learning.
And how else is someone going to learn from us? I think this happens in a lot of church and religious institution settings, that it's assumed that whoever's higher up knows something and you're not allowed to question, and it gets really sticky.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm a minister, and that's what happens.
Yeah.
People think you have a hotline to heaven, and you have a special connection. And I always say, I don't. It's out of order.
Yeah. Arlene, what I've done, and a few times, and I'm welcome to do it anywhere, is if you want somebody to break up the discussion about God, I would be happy to zoom in and talk to you, like literally zoom in and talk to your people, because I'm not their minister. So I can say things and they can keep all their projections onto you as necessary.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's a good thing. All right, folks. Anything else? Thank you guys for coming. Please sign up for the newsletter. It's kind of fun. I send a newsletter 40 out of 52 weeks a year. Oh, and also here, let me plug my book. You've probably already gotten a link to it. This is my Fun Theology workbook. It has lots of exercises and some good thoughts about how to find out what the God word. It works really well for confirmation classes, by the way. Yeah. Because then they can all do the workbook together. All right. I think that's it. It's seeming quiet.
Thank you very much.
I would like to close with a request that those of you who followed Rabbi Brian to this meeting today, go to the Anderson Forum website and see the other events we have scheduled this coming year, and please join us again. For those of you who are regulars, good to see you, and I hope you enjoyed this.
Thanks for inviting me. Thank you very much, David.
Thank you very much, Brian.